Welcome back, MTG Joe here. Today we are going to look at the weekly metagame breakdown for the standard best of 3 traditional standard format on MTG Arena. We're going to take a look to see what are the highest win rate decks and what's kind of the best options to push you into Mythic Rank. If you're looking for upcoming RCQ season, myself, I'm planning to go to one on Sunday. So figuring out what to play with cards I own .deck. Given I don't want to spend like $1,000 on VVs and Cauldrons. So notably this weekend was the Arena Championship 9, which was standard. It was 37 participants. 20 of them brought Izzet Vivi. Another 3 brought Izzet Prowess. And then the next highest played deck was, I believe, Dimir Midrange at 3 copies. So like 8%. The top 8 is currently 7 out of 8 places being Vivi. And the lone other top 8 was Temur Battlecrier, and from the game I was just watching, it looked like they were going to lose in the semis. So all VV, all day, all the time in the best of 3 format. We're seeing this from Untapped GG as well, where we have VV at 21% of the meta. So all these deck lists I will paste and timestamp. So if you want to copy paste, they'll all be in the video description. So same with Untapped if you want to use Untapped. For those who entered the giveaway contest for Untapped Premium last week, I reached out to the winners in the YouTube comments. So take a look just to see if I pinged you with instructions to redeem your code. So Esper Pixie is the next highest at 10%, Temur Battlecrier at 7, Dimir Mid at about 6, Azorius Control at about 6, then we have like Sacrifice, Mono Black Demons. But we got quite a bit of about 10-12 decks to look at today. For the last week, we've had 33,000 games of best of 3 played from Diamond to Mythic Rank, and we have Azorius Control taking the highest win rate, just edging out VV. So this one's at 76% and has a lot of elements looking to deal with VV itself. Seam Rip can deal with a lot of the smaller creatures, can deal with the Cauldron as well. We have Pinnacle Star Cage, which notably can deal with the small creatures as well as, again, Cauldron. So I'll kind of play to that effect. You have No More Lies countered with notable Exile Clause. We see Ride's End as a 2-mana removal spell that exiles as well. Exiles coming in as a premium, given that it's not just a matter of killing VV, you need to make it go away forever. Seeing a split of Consult the Star Charts and Stock Up in terms of your refill package. And then we have Sweepers of Split Up. Again, Ultima being able to deal with the Cauldron as well. Ultima's nice because against Enduring Curiosity, it just ends the turn, so they don't get it back as an enchantment should it die. You have Elspeth Seer, Bezas as your win conditions, 1 Overlord, some Meringues, and an Ugin on the top end. So control the game early, win with your top end later. Azorius does not have a Shockland right now. So you're kind of leveraging the Verges and then the Archives. And this deck is not too bad because most of the time turn 1 you're playing a tap land anyways. You have Annul for artifact enchantments that you need to counter. Get Lost is just more cheap removal. Negate for kind of the mid-rangey control mirrors. Graveyard Hate and Rest in Peace. Voice of Victory against kind of the counterspell instant speed decks. Clearing Conquer against Vivi. Helps turn off a lot of these effects. Can also be used against against Battlecrier. It's not terrible against like Wagon, but it's not going to be doing too much outside of that. It's mainly for VV. Tishana's Tidebinder, activated trigger abilities, bases for the aggressive decks, more Sweepers and Day Judgment, and then Overlord of the Mistmoors. Just in the mid-rangey, kind of grindier matchups, just provides quite a few bodies there. The Boogeyman, VV, 75%. So this deck just generates mana like crazy. If you put VV under Agatha Soul Cauldron, any of your creatures with counters on it get to add mana equal to their power. So you kind of just keep chaining together. If you have multiple instances of VV under there, then you get multiple instances of being able to add mana. So you are basically playing kind of like the old Oculus strategies, draw, discard. We're seeing them play varied numbers of Steam Core Scholar. But the Winter Night Stories draws discards, lets you flash back. Tursa, the Fear of Missing Out all play nicely with draw discard, and then Marauding Mako gets bigger, kind of playing into that theme. Flood Maws, Torch Towers interaction, Abrades, main board. We're also seeing an uptick in Obliterating Bolt, just a flexible card. It can deal up to 4 damage, so even if EV plays a spell for the turn, you still have a chance to kind of kill, but it exiles pretty much most of the common creatures. We don't have Shieldred anymore, so you're not as inclined to need 5 damage. It's more on the 4 side against Preacher, stuff like that. Broadside Barrage is a way to deal 5, then draw, discard, so just more kind of loot style effects, but put VV under it, then just start chaining together, draw a bunch of cards. Prophecy Edict puts counters on things. Then you also have Draconautics Engineer, so if this is under the Cauldron, each of your creatures for 4 mana can create a dragon, and then you can give them haste, so you kind of just start chaining together stuff like that. Again, and all, like we mentioned, Fire Magic's good against Dimir, some of the go wide decks, Mice, stuff like that. Into the Flood mod, cheap bounce, Spell Pierce, cheap disruption, Torch, Braid, just more cheap removal along with Obliterating Bolt. You have Disdainful Stroke for the big mana stuff, Broadside Barrage. Sometimes you'll see the dragon in this place, the Boros Dragon. I always forget its name. And then Ral, just for the grindier matchups, heavy removal matchups, or control, you can bring it in. So if they're bringing in a lot of sweepers, stuff like that, it's a stickier threat. Temur Battlecrier, 74%. This deck here is built around Temur Battlecrier. It gives you a cost reduction on your turn based on the number of creatures for power or greater. So with it, basically, like World Wagon helps you ramp, Trailblazers basically can net free mana. A common line is you plot the Trailblazer, then you cast it for free, you cast Battlecrier, you draw a card, then you float a mana, and then you can play another spell. If you have enough 4 powers out, the Roaming Throne and Anti-Causal Vestige can both be free. Warp gets cost reduction as well. And then with this here, what you're looking to do is name either Druid, Human, for extra card draw, extra mana out of the Trailblazers, or Dragon, and then you get to exile a bunch of cards and ping your opponent for a bunch of damage. You can give your creatures haste and trample with the Cactus, and then Devastating Onslaught, another powerful card. If basically every two 4-power creatures you have, basically creates a free token, so it can haste out a big board, push through a bunch of damage that way as well. Your sideboard, bounce off, just kind of like Floodmon, those effects, but you can also protect your stuff in terms of combo. Go wide decks, you have Fire Magic, Graveyard Hate, and Ghost Vacuum. Because this one here is basically the cheap counter, the negate style effect, the Spell Pierce, but in this deck here, it costs 1 less for each creature 4 or greater, so it can become like a better Spell Pierce in the deck. Torch for cheap removal, some more cheap counters, Scrap Shooter, Artifact Enchantment Hate, Surik for heavy removal decks, just draws you cards, Ugin kind of just scales and can remove some of the bigger creatures you normally wouldn't be able to do with red-based removal, and then it gets the cost reduction as well, so you could potentially be casting this for free. Dimir Midrange, 70%. So there's quite a few ways you can kind of build these configurations. You can have Preachers. This one has Fabloom Trick. Fabloom's really good in the mirror, tapping down stuff, giving you multiple blockers. But the core of the deck with Dimir, cheap disruptive creatures that have evasion. So Spyglass Siren, Sea Soul, they generally don't want to block. Deep Cavern Bat's evasive, kind of tricky tempo-y with Flood Pit's Drowner. And then you either ninja out Kaido or you draw a bunch of cards with Enduring Curiosity. You have a bunch of removal in the deck, Shoot the Sheriff, Nowhere to Run, Bitter Triumph, Tragic Trajectory in here, all useful ways to kind of interact with your opponent's creatures. You have a Sweeper and Scavenger Regent for the go wide decks, Kaido for the grindier heavy removal decks, Deshaun activated abilities, Preachers better against like the aggressive decks, kind of in the mid-rangey battles, when like the Fae's better against like the mirror, like I said, because you have these cheap one toughness, it works really nice. So more phase for the mirror, cheap counters, intimidation tactics, really good against Vivi because it can hit either Vivi or the Cauldron, for example, and it exiles. Graveyard Hate and then Hand Hate. Mono white tokens, 69, just a shade under 70. So this is the Caretaker style and Enduring Innocence package, draws you whole bunch of cards when you get tokens to play. Voice of Victory, recurable token source that lets you play around counters, which this deck usually is a little soft too because you're playing a little bit higher, like slower mid-range. Carrot Cake draws you cards with tokens, life gain, kind of helps you stabilize. Beza, same idea, helps you stabilize. And you have Day of Judgment, Ultima as kind of sweepers, Elspeth and Overlord of the Mistmoors as ways to get more tokens, kind of grind out the long games. and then Seam Rip, Elspeth Smite, and Get Lost 4 kind of like removal options. See Sunken Citadel here with the activated abilities of lands. So Demolition Field can be cheaper, Fountain Port, and then we're seeing Secluded Starforge. So just another way to make tokens in the deck, and then could be a power boost as well. So you have Ugins, Elspeths, just for the grindier matchups. Exalted Sunborn is another way to create multiple tokens. You can warp it into play for some value as well. And against the aggressive decks, it's just like a Baneslayer Angel. Pinnacle Star Cage for the aggressive decks, along with Authority. We have like Elspeth Smite for the aggressive decks as well. Rest in Peace for Graveyard Hate, and Exercise for the bigger things, Artifacts, Enchantment. It's really good against like Vivi, the Temur Battlecrier deck, stuff like that. We have Jeskai Artifacts, which is really, this particular build is blue-white synth with Fire Crystal that you tutor for. So deck's built around Simulacrum Synthesizer. There's some versions that will play more red inside, but this one here is just blue-white basically. So whenever you have a artifact, 3 CMC or greater come to play, you get a construct, creature power toughness equal to the number of artifacts you control. The big thing here is with Repurposing Bay, lets you Birthing Pod into other effects. So you can turn any of your small artifacts, so things like Clayfire Bricks, the Relics, or Spring-Loaded Saw Blades into more 3-drops, removal, tap downs, sweepers, and then it also works against, like if you go 3 into Fire Crystal, it gives all your creatures haste. You also have like a 3 into the White Oversight, which is more removal. Then United Battlefront kind of collected companies you into more effects. You have Day of Judgment split up as more sweepers, Graveyard Hate and Rest in Peace, No More Lies as cheap counter spells along with Negate, Annul for artifact enchantments, and then Graveyard Hate in Ghost Vacuum. So we have Gruul Landfall, Temur Landfall, depending if it's pre or post sideboard, 65%. So these are kind of the newer adaptations of the mono green landfall decks. So you have Tifa and Mossborn Hydra, which effectively double their power every time a line comes into play. So you're playing a bunch of these kind of bad fetch lines to get you multiple landfall triggers. You have the Baby Chocobo that gets bigger. Then you have Traveling Chocobo, which lets you play lines off the top and then doubles basically landfall triggers in the deck. So you get double counters, double effects, stuff like that. We have Ice Till Explorer on the top end here. Lets you play extra lands per turn, lets you play lands from the graveyard, which is very powerful with these fetch style effects. And then whenever you play a land, you have to mill a card, so it helps you kind of dig further in. The milling is also relevant because you have World Soul's Rage, so you can power through, push out a bunch of damage, and then bring back a whole bunch of lands, which plays into the effect. You also have protection effects and Snakeskin Veil for your creatures. Bill also puts counters on stuff and can double counters. Post board against heavy removal decks, you can bring in a basic island. Strike Fear in Their Eyes, basically for Dragonback Assault. Lets you pivot and just have an enchantment here that any land comes into play, makes dragons, so it plays you better against sweepers, stuff like that. You go Ice Till, kind of more of a mid-rangey style strategy. Artifact Enchantment Hate with Siege Ship Impact. That also can make you Lander tokens. You have counters and Repulsive Mutation. Magebane against some of the more aggressive decks, Hunter's Talent for cheap removal, and then Dragon Sniper against like bigger stuff, just trades profitably. Trades up Death Touch Vigilance, lets you attack, and then also just incidentally trade up. So Boros Mice, this is probably the deck I am going to play in the qualifier, or the RCQ. Mostly have all the cards for, funny enough, I don't have Mabel. I have one Mabel, and they're like out of stock everywhere. So I might not get it in time, so I am playing the Hellkite, the 5-mana Warp Dragon, just to deal with like Dimir and stuff. I feel like my meta is going to be Dimir, Mono White, and VV decks, so kind of combat that way there. I probably am not going to run Sheltered by Ghost. I don't think Shelter is good into VV or into like the Dimir decks with nowhere to run or Pixie, and it's bad against like sweeper decks. VV's got enough cheap interaction that it's just not that great. You 2-for-1 yourself potentially. And that deck's usually winning by miles, not like nickeling and diming you. But you're playing kind of Fair Mice, no Heartfire Hero, Flowerfoot Swordmaster, another Valiant trigger, gives your other mice it gives all your mice +1/0. So you have your Emberheart, Manifold Mouse package. Mabel's in here. You have Screaming Nemesis, and then Whiskervale Forerunner. Basically, when it gets Valiant for the first turn, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, you reveal a creature with mana value 3 or less among them, put it onto the battlefield. It's your turn. If you don't put it onto the battlefield, put it into your hand. So kind of like half a collected company-ish if you trigger it. So you can trigger it with like the Manifold Mouse, you can trigger it with the Rockface Village, Shard Mage Rescue, stuff like that. The Shelter does work as a Valiant trigger in the deck. I was playing a Braids just because I wanted coverage against Vivi, so it's kind of trade-offs with that there. And then just a bunch cheap removal. Jite in this one. Jite is not too common. Most of them are playing 3 of this or 3 of the Twin Maws, so it depends on the configuration that you want in the deck there. Sideboard, you have Sunspine Links, just for the greedier mana bases, anything with life gain. Case in here. So not all of them are playing Case. Most of the common configurations are 3 Sunspine, 3 Exercise, 3 Rest in Peace, 3 Obliterating Bolt, 3 Scorching Dragonfire for the Vivi decks. Scorching Dragonfire, again, just good against both the Curiosity, just to exile out of Dimir, and then against Vivi, exiles all their creatures the first turn they play it. So that's kind of configuration there. I've only played 1 game track thus far. Did beat quite a high, so just as like a sample. Very similar. I'm playing a couple Nova Hellkites. I only have 1 Mabel. I'm trying out Magebane Lizard main, just hedging against like the Vivi decks. And then my sideboard, 1 Fire Magic for Dimir, and then pretty much stock like what you're looking at. I did like the Twin Maw. I'm playing 3 Rockface Village over the Restless Biovac. I don't have one and I don't really like it, and I want the added ability just to target my creatures if needed. The deck I played against and won is the Simic Landfall deck. So this deck here is a sweet one. So kind of an adaptation. It's kind of Simic Stompy. So you have your Llanowar Elf. Oh, this one's not Llanowar Elf. Some of them have Llanowar Elf. The one I was playing against Llanowar Elf, but this one's on Hemosymbic Might. So when it becomes tapped, another target creature gets +XX till end of the turn, where X is its power. You have Chocobo, you have Mockingbird to copy your stuff. Bushwhack can be fight or landfall. Flood Maw is interaction. You have Bristly Build, put counters. Gene Morph makes a creature base power 3, so it works nice. You make this base power 3, then another creature gets +3. If you have 6 or more lands, then it becomes base power 6. Schooner can tap this on demand. It helps you explore, get counters, or hit land drops. Sentinel in here, Surik, and then the big one here is Ouroborid. Just puts counters on everything, scales and makes things really big. Curiosity draws you cards. Some of these are on Flood Pit's Drowner, so just different cards that kind of fit the shell there. So kind of a cool Simic deck. We don't see Simic too often in the meta. Tidebinder for activated abilities, Surik for the heavy removal decks, Scavenging Ooze for Graveyard Hate, Repulsive Mutation as counters, Heritage Reclamation, just really flexible card, good against VV, stuff like that. Cauldron to take against the VV decks, Unable to Scream as removal. Esper Pixie, 55%. Another deck that's got quite a few variations in terms of how you can configure it, but at its core, you're looking to cast spells that are permanents, then you can pick them up and reuse them. So things like Nowhere to Run, Momentum Breaker, Storm Chaser's Talent. We see Cryogen Relic draws draws when it enters, draws when it leaves, so you get value there. You have Cosmo Grand Zenith, so the fair version of Corey Steelcutter. So this one here, when you cast 2, you can make a couple creatures or put counters. Pixie, the Sun Pearl Karen, or Fear of Isolation lets you pick up the stuff over and over, and then stock up to refill your hand. Tragic Trajectory is removal to complement the other removal, and some Spyglass Sirens for the early kind of curve. Kaido for the grindier matchups. We see Elegy Acolyte. Pretty nice one against more of the aggressive decks. It's a Stonewall. Whenever it draws you some cards, so kind of the Curiosity style effect, and then makes you tokens if Void was triggered by the end step. Against the aggressive decks, you have Sage of Skies, cast 2 as your second spell, and you get 2 copies of it. Pinnacle for the go wide. You have cheap counters and No More Lies, Exercise for the big things, Artifact Enchantments, Seam Rip for the little things, Ghost Vacuum for Graveyard Hate, Hand Hate and Duress, and Annul for artifact enchantment hate. Then a couple community decks. We have, so this one here, not the highest win rate by Urzarogs. They got into mythic numbers, but this dragon deck's been showing up a bit on MTGO with a wild commander card. Foundations has everything. You just, when in doubt, say it's in Foundations and it's there. So Taurian Mauling is the only changeling other than that artifact one, I think, from Bloomborough, but I think it's one of the few playable ones. So this is a 3-mana 2/2. In this deck, it is a dragon. It's also a lizard for Hired Claw, which is kind of funny. But this year, whenever an opponent casts a spell, you put a counter on it. So you are playing dragons. You have Sarkhan, which you can reveal a dragon, and then you get a treasure token. Dragons coming into play, trigger it to get bigger, so you get some value there. Magda here, whenever you commit a crime, you get treasures. So whenever you target a player or their graveyard or whatever, and then you could sack 3 treasures to make a flying haste dragon. Then just a bunch of burn, lightning strike, burst lightning, plasma bolt, nemesis in here. Then you have links for the greedier base mana bases, Nova Hellkite as a dragon, and then Twin Moss Stormbrute as a dragon. Notably not castable other than with the treasures that you would potentially make. Otherwise, then you have the go wide decks. You have Fire Magic, Ghost Vacuum for Graveyard Hate, Mage Bane as something to try it against. Is reasonable against Pixie, I guess, because you can get around Nora to run, but it's mostly for like the VV decks, slower control decks, stuff like that. Suplex. So this over Braid's an interesting. The Exile's also like obviously more relevant. However, the downside is sorcery versus instant speed. So you get a little less flexibility in terms of where you're playing it. Vengeful Possession for the big stuff, and then Chandra for the grindier matchups. We then have Naya Yuna. This one's from Pachu Main. They went 39 and 18 into 700 Mythic. So this deck here is all about putting cards into your graveyard and then reanimating enchantments with Yuna at your end step. Notably, the Overlord comes in, deals 4 damage. It's lifelink for the turn, so you gain some life as well. You have your Overlord of Mistmoors, summon Knights in your top end, and then you could use self-mill with like, or loot through like Dredger's Insight, Fear of Missing Out, Terra, self-mills. Joshua draws discards, you ramp with like Summon, Esper Origins kind of ties the deck together. The nice thing here is you got some more cheap removal in Seamrip that's also an enchantment. Same with Torch to kind of help stabilize you in the early game. Summon Bahamut as just a way to kind of blow up individual threats. In the grindier matchups, you have Overlord, Ultima, Artifact, Creature and Artifact Hates through a sweeper, Clarion Conquer for like Izzet Vivi. We've mentioned Exercise a bunch of times. All the white decks are playing it. Restoration Magic as a protection effect. Ghost Vacuum for Graveyard Hate. Fire Magic as another cheap sweeper. And then lastly, another deck that's been picking up is the various Kona kind of mid-rangey piles. Kona Surprise. This one's from Shahar Shenhar. They got to 30-ish Mythic, 30, 40 Mythic. They are 44 and 15 with this version. So basically, Kona plays really nicely with the planet lands. So this allows you to tap it right away, so you get some value. Notably, if you put into play something like Galta, you can dump your hand, but you have all these kind of fatties. Volborn Tyrant draws you cards, you get value like that. A lot of these are legendaries, so the Seriema can then tutor for them, along with the Koma, and then this is kind of a nice combo because Seriema is not only just a tutor for the Kona, it's also an enabler, so you get some value there. The Lumbering World Wagon as another enabler. You also have kind of the fair plan of Smuggler's Surprise to just cheat into these biggies as well. Wily Duke's an interesting one here, and you'll see a copy in the sideboard for kind of the grindier matchups. It allows you to draw cards. So just a lot of ways to tap it on demand, and then you draw some cards. Absolute Virtue against some decks just wins the game against like red or stuff like that. Decks that can't normally deal with these big things. Your opponents just basically can never deal damage to you and kind of win that way there. Sunfall Invocation, it's a sweeper that then lets you gift and then reanimate one of your big things again. So sweeper that leaves something behind. Beza helps in the more aggressive decks. Pinnacle Starcage for the go wide decks. High Noon for any deck that's looking to play multiple spells per turn. The Temur Battlecrier, Vivi, stuff like that. Then Get Lost as removal, Devout Decree, just for red and black things, and then Ghost Vacuum for Graveyard Hate. So that's it for the week. Let me know what you've been playing, what you've been liking. If you got a good version of Mice that you're happy with, send it my way, because I don't have confidence in Delirium with everybody playing Soul Cauldron's main. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a great one.